Welcome. On today's edition of Kelly and Company, author Anne Mok says, visibility and vulnerability create a powerful ripple effect. She shares how her online Canadian Find series is bridging communities and boldly claiming space for people with disabilities. And think you know your way around the kitchen. Some of the rules that we've followed for years might actually be wrong. Today we're busting some of the biggest food myths out there so you can stop second guessing your cooking skills. Next, we talk about finding free art. Did someone say free?
This is Kelly and Company.
And this lady joining me, Nazreen Abdul-Majid. What's going on today, Niz?
One of my two favorite words, free and sale. You got me at free. Now I'm listening.
So they've been talking a lot, of course, about the Bay and the apparent sales. People have said they show up and there's nothing on the shelves, or what's there doesn't seem to be sale price. And then you're hearing about different things that, because of its long-time history here in Canada, of course, we're hearing about things that used to be at the Bay and some of its kind of checkered history, which, again, anytime you're around long enough and you span decades and centuries, there's going to be checkered history, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've heard from so many people that the Bay is just empty shelves at this point. It looks like how Target, you know, when they attempted to make Target here in Ontario. Yeah. And then all the shelves were empty. That's how it looks like right now.
Well, I think some of the problem with Target was, and again, if you are a cross-border shopper or were, again, I'm thinking back when times were different, even before the pandemic, you would have so much choice, which is how come people loved crossing over, because what was sold in the United States wasn't sold in Canada a lot of time. You had so much cereal, the aisles went on forever, where we'd come back to Canada, hey, there's not as much here. This is what real shoppers have said about this phenomenon. But right now, of course, we're finding when it comes to clearing out of the Bay, hey, this has gone, under, and they're liquidating everything. Where is everything? So I think that's really been puzzling people.
Yeah. It kind of sucks though, because, I love shopping in America for that reason, because of Target, and it was a big difference. When they attempted Target here, absolutely empty. They didn't fill enough. It was very dead. So it was a big fail. But
what
now, I don't know, like the Bay, I looked for like
with the Target when it opened here, what was the thing you were after that you knew, all right, Target's here, I now I can get what I've seen in the States here, and we're surprised that, hey, it's not here. Coffee
syrups. They have so many different varieties. Over here, it's just like a couple. And that's it. Coffee syrups and home decor. They have like unique stuff and good prices. That's me crossing the border and realizing that. But when I was shopping here at Target when I first opened, I didn't find anything except like towels and soap dispensers, and that's it. It was very basic stuff. Very different.
For the Canadian market, and you stop and say, how come? And again, there's probably all sorts of reasons how come they weren't bringing that over, whether not the right to, or other Canadian stores that had the rights to sell certain things maybe weren't even close to you here in Ontario. Maybe it was someplace out west. So really fascinating and actually interesting thought, because I know that was a big grief.
Yeah. I know. I have a question for you, but how do you feel about change? When Zellers closed, everybody was shocked and sad, and now the Bay is getting how do you feel about it?
Well, Zellers and the Bay, I think the Bay is the saddest because of how old it is. Yeah. That's just really downright sad. Was I a big Bay shopper over my lifetime? Absolutely not. I went and bought things. I used to buy all my Discman there, that kind of, those old sport Walkmans when they were around. I used to seem to like getting things there for that. And before school, back to school, my parents would take me there. But that was about it. It wasn't one of my favorite places to go to. But I think the fact that it's so old and what it started out is just impressive. And sad to see it go. Zellers too. I think the history there, and there were other places it was sad to see go, Byway and Bargain Heralds and all that, but none of them had the history that the Bay or Zellers did. And then, of course, you always have local places. We had a few local places here in London that it was sad to see them go.
We were more of a Zellers, shoppers, but the Bay is still like, as I mentioned before, I don't like change. So when I hear these old stores from like childhood passing through, it makes me sad because there's just so many things changing. But at the same time, I was never a big shopper there. So why do I feel this way?
Well, and I find it funny. We welcome in Christine Malec, who's joining us for our first chat today. But Chris, I kind of want to ask you this as you've been listening in. Do you think us as Canadians, we lose some of the value on history because we're such a young country? And I know the U.S., when we look around the world, London, like England, so many other places, Morocco, they're so old compared to Canada.
It's true. And I find that as Canadians, we notice that when we go to those places. But I guess there's two things I think is one is I grew up in Canada where our history, like if something's 100 years old, that's pretty impressive. And so that's normal to me. So I don't miss it because I'm not used to it. But the other thing is I grew up not knowing about all of the other nations that lived on this land before the European settlers came. And so that's on me and on the education system. So we do have a history, but it's not preserved in architecture or writing. And so it's kind of on us now in a more, a little more maybe broadly thinking culture to think, oh, actually, there is a really long history here. It just doesn't involve my ethnicity background, but I could study it and learn about that. So I don't feel much nostalgia for the Bay, either for its history or for the shopping. Like I'm kind of on the checkered past side of those big companies that started by being multinational exploitative places. So I don't feel much nostalgia for it, but I definitely can relate to the patriotic sort of feeling of like it's a Canadian institution. But we have lots of other good Canadian institutions that are more precious to me. So I don't really feel that way about it.
Yeah, I think I've looked at a place and I'm obviously loyal to places that are easier, that I know, that treat me well. I kind of want to segue this into the other area that we sometimes, at least I take pride in. When I hear of somebody, a celebrity, a well-known, say, creator, whether that be somebody like, example that comes to my mind, this area of Canada, the Warner Brothers. Who created Warner Brothers. They're from this area. So I always think, oh, that's kind of cool. But a lot of that, we're so used to people in our viewpoint, Guy Lombardo is going to the United States and getting claimed by the U.S. or somewhere else in the world. So we're not even necessarily fully knowledgeable about that. But I think we get more pride in that. I know as a kid, I had huge pride in the fact that the Bay came from all the fur trading. And I think that, do you ladies feel the same? Is there those Canadians out there or in the past that maybe you said, I didn't know that person was here? I believe Walt Disney was one of them too, but definitely claimed, if you look it up, he's oh no, he's from Chicago or somewhere like that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Warner Brothers, I didn't know that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the Warner Brothers. And again, people go check your smart speakers because I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're from this part of southwestern Ontario.
Oh, same with Alexander Graham Bell. There gets to be some ambiguity about, where did he live? Where was he from? Where did he invent the phone? So there's always this sort of back and forth cultural tussle and us trying to find sort of our own national folk heroes and culture heroes, which is it's ongoing, but we don't have to look very far to find great Canadian artists who are still still in Canada.
You betcha. Check out the Junos this weekend for those who like the music side of it, and so many other artists. Chris, one of the things we want to talk about today is a little bit further away from those necessary celebrity stars and necessarily, but we're going to talk about affordable theater and things like that. So our art consultant, Christine Malec, here to give us some ideas of how to find, even better than cheap, free art out there, because obviously income can be a barrier to live events. So we're going to go through some of the ideas Chris has that have things that you can do to still be able to take part. So when we say art or performance, Chris, what are you thinking about?
I'm thinking, well, I'm so oriented towards music, so I that's where I go is music and performance and concerts, but also live theater, art installations. And so I got thinking about this because there's a church a few kilometers from my house, and a friend and I often attend concerts there because every Tuesday from 12:10 p.m. until 1, cozily, oriented in the lunch hour, they have uh, concerts, classical concerts. And like they already have a piano and an organ there. And they bring in, it's mostly music students. And the music students are required to achieve a certain number of performance hours. And so the way they do this is they perform. And that happens often in churches. It often happens in small theaters on a college or university campus, and it's a win-win because the students get the performance hours. A venue like a church, they have a little collecting basket, and if you can or if you want to, you're invited to contribute. You certainly are not expected to, but the church benefits a little bit by building community and by bringing in a little money for some of the community programs that they run. And the community benefits by having access to, I'm wiggling my fingers for air quotes, but like high culture. So it's not just something you download on your music app or whatever, but it's genuine classical music. Like the concert was this 45-minute piece by Schubert, performed by, to my ear, what's an expert guy? Like, okay, maybe he's a student, but I'm no expert. So to me, I'm getting 45 minutes of a Schubert a Schubert piece for free. And churches, as everyone knows, are acoustic gems. Their acoustics in a church are so good. And so those are, for music, that's kind of one of my favorite places is churches and music schools. So U of T in Toronto is a popular one. But wherever you live in Canada, there's going to be a church, a community center, a school, and we don't have to have super high standards. It could be the high school band concert. Like it's still live music, right? So it's a way to think about accessing arts and culture that's a little more grassroots and free or a very, very low cost. Is that something you guys have done?
I've watched them advertise, and I think they even put them online. They might now. The Faculty of Music at UWO here in London does that through the school year at lunchtime, and I think they do the free concert down at one of the cathedrals right downtown so that people on their lunch from work can wander over and do this on a Tuesday or a Thursday. I have not ever gone to it. I've wanted to, but with the timing of work and everything like that,
of course,
I haven't been able to. But I think it's tremendous, and it's exactly that, Chris. Churches, as you mentioned, I know so many churches have their own bands. They obviously have their choir. There is so much talent there. They put on plays. They do all sorts of things, and even down to, a lot of places lend themselves out to fitness. Now, I know we're talking arts and that kind of thing, but it's amazing how well-rounded Nazarene churches are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, too, like, if you just happen to find out when the choir practice is at your local church, I don't think anyone's going to mind if you just come in and sit. Like, choir practices are awesome because it's not a polished concert, but it's a choir. It's like dozens of people singing together, and they've got skills, and it's actually really interesting to watch how that stuff comes to be. And so if you like music, that's another avenue, is just like find your church, and it may be sacred music, which may not be to your taste, but they also host other types of secular choirs, or just use the church space. And it could be a community center that might do this, libraries. Most public libraries have this thing that I'm just learning about called artist in residence. And so that could be anything from a storyteller to a musician to a poet or a crafts person. But your local library can also be a source of financially accessible art. And so it takes some digging in your own community for sure. But there's probably a lot more going on there than is on the surface.
Yeah, museums as well, right? Because sometimes somebody will run a show.
Yes.
Sometimes some of the speaking, the talks
I've
that
never
happen,
seen
and I
that.
count them all, right? Yeah,
At a museum?
yeah, but I know, especially for certain months, right? Like if you have Black History Month, there's often presentations that may come out as more dramatic presentations, talks that are of that, and or music. And someone may do a talk put to music of the time and era. It's that they're trying to cover, that they're focusing on. So it's not just lectures. But a lot of time, even at a museum, you'll get something like that. But they may be a little more far and few between because of the nature of what we expect at a museum and getting the word out there. I think that's a big problem too. A lot of places, it's getting the word out. A library is great, but it tends to be a neighborhood thing. No one thinks a museum does these kinds of things. So I think they get struggling between, will we get audience here for this? How do we publicize it? Because it's not their normal gig.
I think it would be pretty cool
also,
to see that.
Yeah,
at
me
a
too.
Museum.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure the ROM and the AGO in Toronto, just because that's where I live, they have days where it's either half price or free. And so I really firmly believe that cultural organizations want to reach as many people as possible, but the arts is constantly struggling with funding. And so it's not that they're parsimonious and like get as much money as we can get from each person.
No.
They genuinely want art to be available, and most organizations make some, and it might be as simple as your local theater. Will they offer you a discount if you're blind or low vision, or will they offer a companion fare? And that may not be something they advertise, and it may not even be something they have a policy about, only because no one's asked. And so it takes some research, and because these are small places, as Nasreed said, like, you may not be promoting that, but arts organizations really want art to be as available as possible, and sometimes they don't promote the ways in which they're doing that, or they haven't really thought through. But if you approach them and say, do you offer a companion fare or a discount, or do you have free days that are free admission? Do you have any live performances that are affordable? There's other. It doesn't have to be all Mirvish and mainstream big theater and big concerts, because concerts are so expensive. Oh my god!
Oh yeah.
So
and I think that's the problem, right, ladies? It's
so
money
expensive.
to put these on. What can you afford to give away in your way, and how? Yeah.
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 And I look at concert price and I just shake my head. Oh my god, there's no
Right?
way.
I'm like, it's not worth it.
That to me.
Let me sell my kidney and we'll buy a ticket.
Are you coming to my backyard for a concert? Is that what I'm
That's
paying
right.
for? Because
how about the front lawn? There'll be more exposure.
Concert.
There'll be more people seeing it. Chris, though, you make an interesting point, though, because one of the areas, if you're not necessarily checking these places out, you don't know about them. But most of us have had that ability to go to school, go in high school, and every year there's the big play that's put on. And I remember auditioning for the big play at Saunders here in London. And then I remember going back after I graduated to watch their big play, and then learning and thinking about it, saying, hold it. All the schools do this, because you'd hear them advertised back in the day when radio stations actually publicized the stuff. And I remember checking out, there would be a season almost from April to June where you could go see these plays, and they were so cheap. You had, and it was great because all the schools had their big auditoriums, big stages and stuff like that. The budgets back then to put decent shows on, and they would do a run for the students to learn what it was all about. And what a very inexpensive way. I won't say free, but very darn close.
Well,
yeah.
And they're working their tails off up there. And if you set your expectations at the right place, it could be super fun to just watch some teenagers really up there, really like it's their first big time on stage. And that excitement has to be palpable. And if you like live art, that excitement is part of the process and the fun of it. So if you've got your expectations set in the right place, I can't see how that could not be, really fun. Even when maybe especially if you don't know the kids involved, because you don't care if they succeed or flop. Like you've got you don't have to take them home and wipe their eyes. You can just
exactly.
that didn't work
and
out.
what a way to see stuff that you may know Mirvish is putting on. Well, for example, I remember seeing Les Mis for the first time. Didn't really know anything about it, and it wasn't a musical of it. It it was the play version of it at one of the high schools. I think it was Saunders the year after I left it, actually. And they put on Les Mis. I didn't know a lot about it at the time, but what a more inexpensive way to see it, instead of people saying, you got to see that big Les Mis, that play. Where is it? Oh, in Toronto, and it costs, whoa, what?
I know,
Here's a way
like,
people
why?
get culture. They get that bit of culture.
You don't need to spend, it doesn't need to be a big flashy thing. And theater and storytelling and music certainly did not start that way, and it doesn't have to be that way. It can be as local as like your community center, the local high school. And in some ways, that's the most grassroots art you're ever going to get. And there's some young people. And if you care about fame, maybe one day one of those people will be famous. And you can say, I saw Joe Pesci when he was only 15 and he was drooling and he was terrified. And you can have your
fell off the stage
about whatever. He fell off the stage. Yeah, you should have seen him.
But we're all open to it. Hey, if you want to sit down at a mechanical keyboard and type us a letter and offer us up free tickets or something, feel free.
Type away.
Feel free, right, Niz?
It's true. And if you have access to culture, let people know. Absolutely, like spread the word, because as popular culture gets more and more expensive, I think there's more appetite for things that are local and more grassroots.
You bet. And my typist was one finger typing, right? Just got to know that home row. Thanks, Chris.
Wait, you only type one finger? Okay, good luck with that one finger typing. Thank you.
2 hours later.
Yeah, exactly, right? Long. That's the shortest letter you can get, 2 hours later, right? No matter what part of the country you're in, folks, it's almost certain that there are artists and performers around. It might take some digging, but there are probably ways you can find them doing what they're doing. We thank Christine for bringing this really interesting and give us some chance to think about this. And as we sit and talk about it, people saying, hey, let me take a look in my community. Always a good thing, Nisreen. You and I've talked about, auditioning for these plays in high school and stuff like that. Do you recall watching your high school play?
Yeah.
Amazing stuff, eh?
It was great. You don't think that high schoolers are really talented, but you'd be surprised. And I used to even go to my sister's middle school talent shows, and they were brilliant. They did drumming, they did singing. It really surprised me. And it's fun. It's absolutely fun. And you brought up a really good point. Like back in the day, you would get the word out immediately, whether it's word by mouth or on the radio. Like they used to spread this information around to what's around our community. And now it's just nobody cares. I mean, I don't feel like people care enough to spread that information enough.
I often wonder if broadcasters are still supposed to do that. I think it used to be part of the license, the promise of performance. And like you said, you just don't get that. The community is just, no, that's too small
People
potatoes.
Are like, oh, they're not interested in it. We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, it's almost like advertising. They'd rather just get the McDonald's restaurants and stuff like that, the big chains, because that's guaranteed big money. Those guys will always spend it. I know here they do the high school project at one of the theaters, and this has been something that really caught on, and lots of people attend it. But again, we're blessed in London as a UNESCO city, having so many different things that have really brought the arts up, from community theater to lots of local artists performing. The big free event in the summertime that people can go to, and hey, man, you don't have to, but it's always wonderful to run it and to keep it existing. The Sunfest. TD Sunfest lives off their sponsors and donations from people. But this is a mega event in the park, multicultural, with at least 52 bands that come for 4 days and play. Where else can you find something for free like that, where you can move around from stage to stage or camp at one and really enjoy yourself? So I love this topic that Chris brought to us. So really cool. Remember, check it out, folks. You can go back and listen to it. We do repeat on AMI Audio. We're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with every decision that we make at AMI, including programming, media consumption, and accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies. For more information, if you want to join up to the panel, go to ami.ca/panel. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. And if you wouldn't mind, speaking of the social media stuff, folks out there, follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI. Nazreen keeps you busy with all the great stuff that's posted up there. Lots of cool stuff on our Instagram and Twitter pages. So do check us out. Follow the handle at Kelly & Co. AMI.
Anne Mok is an author and disability advocate. She just released her book, Resilience and Purpose, last week, which explores the power of visibility and vulnerability in finding purpose and making connections. She's also the voice behind Purpose in View on Instagram, where she highlights accessibility, inclusive business practices, and great Canadian brands. And welcome to the show.
Hi, Kelly and Nazreen. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Of course.
My name is Anne Mok, and I am an Asian Canadian woman. I have long highlighted brown hair in loose waves, and I'm wearing a white top and sitting in my home office where the background is white, and I have a background of fake flowers because I can't keep them alive.
Oh, me too.
And so honest.
That's all I have. Yeah. I can't keep a plant for more than 2 days. No, it's.
Oh my gosh! Talk about bad luck, or bad watering, or bad feeding, or something.
I think it's just bad sunlight in my apartment, so nothing lasts.
That's it. Blame the sun.
Yeah. And it's great having you here. So let's get started. In your book, you say that starting your Instagram account was a lifeline at a time you were learning to live with chronic pain. So how did it help you interrupt and change the patterns you were in all the time?
When I launched my Instagram account, Purpose in View, back in November 2020, it was really during one of the hardest seasons of my life. I had just been diagnosed with new daily persistent headache, or NDPH. It's this constant migraine-like head pain that I actually still live with today. And while we're speaking, I have it just going on in the back of my head. I also live with colon rod dystrophy, an inherited retinal eye condition. So when I was first diagnosed, I ended up being bedridden for the first 8 months, and I became deeply depressed. And that account became my lifeline. It gave me a place to really connect, to process, and to create. And it helped really interrupt that silence and despair that I was feeling. And I also noticed that websites were really inaccessible. And this was magnified, especially during the pandemic. This anger and struggle replaced my despair, but that anger also became a spark, and that spark ignited this purpose in me. I really wanted to connect with community, and I thought by connecting through social media, I could do that. And I chose Instagram because it is a visual medium, and at the same time, I wanted to challenge Instagram to see if I could make content as accessible as possible. And with the pandemic, I noticed that small businesses were also struggling. So I really wanted to find some small way to help. So I started sharing moments of beauty, but also supporting small businesses at the same time. I would write the image descriptions, the alt text, do visual and audio storytelling, because even though Instagram is a visual platform, I believe that beauty should be accessible for everyone. And that's how I slowly began rebuilding myself. And that path eventually unfolded into the work that I do today.
Wow. Nazreen gets into doing that as we fold out our Instagram page, and some of the discussions over the last several years that we've had at AMI are about that. Is it accessible? How do you make Instagram more accessible for the low vision and blind community? And I think during the pandemic, a lot of organizations, companies, from Zoom to Instagram to everybody, was doing, they had the time to kind of say, well, okay, this is a problem. We have an interest. How, we maybe we should start doing something maybe without the pandemic. Yeah, we'll get around to that. I'm curious your thoughts there, but also with dealing with what you were dealing with, the pandemic as it was already taking its toll, your health situation. When you look at what you were putting out on Instagram then versus a year later, especially dealing with the frustration, the loneliness, depression. Can you talk a little bit to what you knew or what you might have done if you felt you needed to change your earliest videos and reels and made them different as the months went on? What would someone look at if they ran a bunch of them back to back?
They would probably see that I'm adding image descriptions as well as alt text. I think that's really important because you're not only reaching the visually impaired community, but you're also reaching those um, that are neurodivergent as well. And
Yes.
those with image descriptions can be translated into other languages. So you're reaching a much broader audience. And so that I feel that not only are alt text is important, but image descriptions is extremely important because it reaches much more many more people.
Mm-hmm.
And how about you in your own content that you were putting out, in the way you felt as time went on and your content changed?
I would say that I realized how important it is to be visible. I've learned that being visible is being bold at the same time. I love walking with my white cane. I'll post a reel and I'll describe how I navigate daily life. But I've also noticed like how it's really inviting others in and
Yes.
really challenging like stereotypes and really shifting the mindset, and showing that we belong in these spaces. It's showing up and claiming the space, and making an impact. And even if we may not see it immediately, I believe the effect is still happening, and it is touching more people than we realize.
Right. Be patient with it, with
Yes.
the progress, and kind of live in that moment of what you're doing, what helps you and what you see coming back, but it will take that time.
Yes.
Excellent.
You mentioned that you were part of a cane group. What's the name of the cane group?
Yes, it's called Name Your Cane. So we meet monthly, and it came from that gray period in our lives where we know we need to use a cane, but we're afraid to use the cane because of the stereotype and the biases that are out there. But reclaiming that for ourselves, and showing how bold we can be when we have our canes. And a lot of it is conversation about how we're feeling and how we're navigating life and what experiences we go through. And then in naming our cane, it kind of gives our cane more purpose. I've named my cane. One of them is named Purpose because I had an artistic friend do a piece of artwork on it, and the other one I have named is Ted because Ted is the one who really navigated me to these spaces, to be more visible and to the TEDx stage. So that's Ted.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Can I just say, we live in a world where it's amazing how we can make meaningful connections online without,
Yes.
you know, being in that space physically. It's
Yes, absolutely.
to be able to do that right now is amazing. So let's get into it. What are people missing out on by just lurking online instead of actively participating, though?
I think when you just watch on the sidelines, you miss the chance to really connect with people. The community that I have connected with through Purpose in View really became my lifeline. And it wasn't just about creating the content, it was about all the conversations that we had. And when you're actively engaging, you find people who reflect your experience, who remind you that you're not alone. And that's the kind of connection where vulnerability meets the empathy, and that leads to belonging. And that's where I found really meaningful connections and community building. And participating also gives you the opportunity to build something. I've been able to build a voice, a space, a shared identity, and in disability advocacy, claiming that space is how we push back against being overlooked. And accessibility is about being visible and creating spaces where we're seen and heard.
Yes. I mean, Anne, I've loved that people pick up on things through people just speaking. Their day to day, they start learning, because as you say, whether you're a person who, well, I don't want people noticing my cane and bugging me. Oh, I want to float around in the background here and just observe. Well, even those who are observing, who are learning about things, I think that is great, especially when people like yourself and those who respond and who talk with you online, people are witnessing and saying, yeah. I mean, a lot of time people don't want to ask you, so tell me about Ted. Why do you call this? Yeah. But if you're out there saying, oh, Ted and I, hey, that's okay. That's what people love to learn that way, instead of being, as some will say, well, I don't like being just talked at or preached at. But social media has given us that level. But I think for all of us, no, you don't have to be an ambassador all the time. You don't have to be an advocate all the time. But it makes life so much simpler when we're open to things like that. And I think that's really important. And there's always going to be someone who's less comfortable and someone like yourself who is more comfortable, and you know the reasons how come for you this has worked.
Yes, exactly. And even just in your daily life, that's showing up and claiming space, going to Walmart, uh, scanning your groceries and doing that independently shows that, yes, I could do it. And you know what? We're part of the fabric of society. And I invite people to ask questions. Like, I have little kids that will come up and ask me about my cane, and I'm happy to chat about it, because it brings conversation.
And warmth, right? Your smile makes people feel, hey, that I'm approachable. Sorry, Nisreen, did you want to jump in?
Oh, I was just going to say, if we can get into Canadian fines, because I know you have a long-running series called Canadian Fines. Do you think the Buy Canadian trend sparked by trade tensions with the U.S. is making Canadian business owners more receptive to feedback and engagement? Is it opening avenues for advocacy?
I think that's such an interesting question, because I do think Canadian business owners are becoming more open, not just to feedback, but to conversations around inclusion and accessibility. And when I started Canadian Fines, it really came from a place of wanting to support those small local businesses during the pandemic. I purchased from them, tag them in a post, and provide these detailed descriptions so that the blind and low vision community could experience those products. And what I found was that many business owners were genuinely curious about how to do better. And through connections that I've made and collaborations with brands like Canvas Candle Company, Within Us, Sweet Legs, and Onyx and Ivy, I've been able to have thoughtful conversations around representation, also descriptive language, and inclusive storytelling. And they may include me on their community blog, where I can share about digital accessibility or do a video testimonial. And they're not all accessible yet, but I think what's important is creating the accessible content around their products, that I've been able to bridge these two communities, the sighted and the visually impaired. And I feel that's the heart of Canadian Fines.
Is it because people can digest what you're trying, the messages that you're putting out there at their time, in their way, and watching now, because it's not like they have to be asked, well, read this, go online, find this, follow this link, or in the old days, just, well, go to the library and look it up. Now everything is presented right in front from people with lived experience.
Yes. And I find that, they see, a blind person on social media, and it immediately invites curiosity.
Yes.
And with that curiosity, they're like, let's check it out. Like, how is she creating content? How is she able to do that? And so by doing descriptive storytelling, using music to help set the tone and the pace, it really invites them into my world. But they're also learning about how I use these products, the feedback that I get from them, and why it's important to me. So they're also getting like a little review at the same time.
Great.
Brilliant. Can you tell us about your interactions with brands and businesses? What's your approach to claiming space and being visible?
A lot of times they will reach out to me, and number one, I think it's amazing to have brands that reach out to our community and invite us
Yeah.
to be part of the conversation.
Yes.
And
Nice.
with that, I am showcasing the products. I'm uh, visually describing them, their impact, how they feel, uh, what emotion I might get out of it, and then when I'm writing the caption and the descriptions, a lot of them will just say, just write something short, but I will do a caption that tells a little bit more, but I'll also add the video description, and then I'll add the transcript perhaps, so that it's a full experience for everyone.
Yeah.
Very nice. And well, thank you so much too
Thank
for
you
what
so
you're
much.
doing out there and being
Yeah.
comfortable with having these conversations and giving people to watch, to listen, and be a part of.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
That was author and advocate Anne Mok sharing how her Canadian Fine series online is bridging communities and boldly claiming space for people with disabilities. Her book, Resilience and Purpose, is now available in print, on ebook, and on indigo.ca or wherever you get your books from. For more from Anne, follow her on Purpose in View on Instagram or check out her blog at purposeinview.com.
So much there to unpack, but for me, it's so
know.
wonderful. At the time she was going through the health stuff, so many of us were dealing with our
Lost track of
upset as
time,
it was. Well, yeah, exactly. But everybody was dealing with the pandemic. She's got the health stuff. What a way to find
Yeah.
herself and be okay. And I always hesitate because not everybody wants to be an advocate. Not everybody wants to sit around teaching people this and that, whether you work at a place or you get tired sometimes. So tell me how you do that. Oh, for God's sake. But there's a level of it works in our favor to take that time to help somebody, whether it's a young person, a colleague that's new at work or whatever it might be. But not everybody wants to do that, nor should everyone feel, well, that's my purpose in life. I have to explain everything about what has to do with me. And sometimes it gets personal. It's wonderful when somebody like Anne is comfortable, finds a way to do that, letting people, I don't want to say lead by example, because it's not that, just define by example. Let people just see, as she said, I'm going out to pay for my food at the grocery store. I'm there shopping. I'm standing in line. I'm talking to the teller. I'm paying with my debit card. So much taken into by everybody else around, and fedoras off to those who are comfortable and we don't feel self-conscious. I know some people don't want to carry a cane because they don't want to bring attention to themselves.
Yeah.
Really something. Thank you, Anne, for making that time to come on the show today. Email us at kellyco@ami.ca and call us 1-866-509-4545. We'd love to hear from you. Maybe leave us a message that we can play on the program. We've all heard kitchen rules, like adding oil to pasta water and cast iron pans can't be washed, but are they fact or fiction? Culinary expert Mary Mammoliti is here to set some of these records straight for us. Mayor, thanks a lot for being with us. How are you today?
Thanks for having me. I'm great. Always great when I'm chatting with you both.
Thank you. And thank you for always coming on to dispel. We like that too.
Yes.
So what is one kitchen thing that you used to follow that you now know is absolutely wrong, that you can say foil, BS, whatever you want to call it?
I don't know about BS, but it's definitely not true necessarily. So mine was always oil and pasta water. It's something that I remember. Now, I lost my mom when I was like 12, 13. So I remember at a very young age watching her put a little bit of oil in the pasta water. So I automatically assumed as I was growing up that that's what you had to do.
Right.
Wrong. So the myth is that you need oil in pasta water to keep it from sticking. The truth is oil doesn't stop sticking. It actually just coats the pasta. So it makes it harder for that sauce to actually cling and stick to the pasta strands or the noodles or whatever you're cooking. Right. So, but
Like I said,
the deal
BS,
is
bull soup.
right.
That's what it turns out, right?
Stirring the
Semi-BS.
pasta. Right. So the first couple of minutes that you pop in that pasta into the boiling water, give it a good stir. That's what actually prevents it from sticking. Skip that oil. Leave the oil for the sauce. And the next myth.
I like that. It's so funny because, like, you think about it. I don't want to like. Is it as obvious to everybody? Like, is it an obvious thing when you think about it that, yeah, I've been doing this, but why? Like, look, this would be a problem. It's kind of like one of those things where yeah, but it doesn't really make sense. But I've been told to do it, so just do it.
Yeah, because I mean, everyone thought the pasta will stick together when you pop it into the boiling water, whether you're making macaroni and cheese, whatever it is. And it's not necessarily true. Okay. So remember that when you're making your next pot of pasta.
I like your next one, the cast iron pan. This is interesting to me.
So the cast iron pan, the myth is cast iron pans can't be washed with soap. This has been an ongoing debate for years. People still talk about it. It came up the other day when I was talking with some friends and family. The truth is, honestly, a little bit of soap, it will not hurt your cast iron skillet, cast iron pan, pot, whatever it is. Because modern dish soap, it isn't harsh enough to actually strip away that seasoning. So a well-seasoned pan, it can handle a little gentle wash. So what I want you to do, use a small amount if you need it, a small amount of soap if you need it, dry it immediately, and then repeat a little coat of oil on it just to maintain that seasoning. That's it.
I would say that with the late George Foreman grills too, right? Like yes. Or any of those grills that, don't put any of that on there. You'll destroy the coating.
So people actually don't wash their iron pans because they think they can. So what do they do with it? Stick with the oil?
Well, what they'll do is they'll rinse it. Pan? Yeah, they'll rinse it to remove any food debris. And then they'll use a paper towel, wipe it down, and then they'll just put it away.
No.
For me, I have been washing mine forever. And I'm not talking about like you're soaking it and you're scrubbing it. No. You give it a nice little wash, a little bit of soap, wash that out, and then you can just re-season it slightly before you put it away.
I use the soft part of the sponge, not the scratchy part.
Right.
Because I've heard the scratchy part can scratch your iron pan, like that's a known thing.
Right.
But I never heard of people just rinsing it using paper towel because the oil's still there. It's oil. So it stays there. Even no matter how hard you scrub it with a paper towel, you're still going to feel it. The texture is there.
Well, that's it. And then back in the day, the reason why back in the day, they had the soaps were a lot more abrasive and it would actually strip away some of that coating. So it's not that today. It's not like that. We've progressed. We have so many different things available to us. But still, if you don't want to wash it, you do you. But I am telling you that you can. Definitely.
Well, and I think, like you said, the days where it was, look, it destroyed people's hands. That's how harsh, obviously, it was. Things we've had to address that. But I think there was that belief, too, that, but when you heat it up anyway, it'll take care of everything. You don't have to worry about anything. It'll take care of those layers, the bacteria, anything that sat on there. And think about it. Well, no, not everything necessarily. But I think those were some of those myths that were allowed to be. And really interesting when you say that.
Along with eat a little bit of dirt.
Exactly. Make sure. Take the kid over there. That child has chicken. Take that child has chicken pox. Send the kid over there. Okay. But speaking of heat, the myth.
Yes.
Should you always preheat your oven?
The truth is, some foods, they actually benefit from going into a cold oven. So bacon, slow roasted meats, they cook more evenly when they actually heat up gradually. So for foods that need a little gentle cooking, a little cold start, honestly, it can give better results. So that would be my answer to that one.
That's an interesting one. Okay. Like what? Like, is there a particular food that you want to at least shout out that we should, is this something people can just, okay. So sorry, you did say bacon.
That's okay. Bacon is a perfect example. And that's why I want to highlight it because you think, putting it into a preheated oven, it kind of shocks that right away and it cooks immediately. Whereas if you put it in, it's got that slow cook, the same as if you're putting it into a pan. It's got that slow heat startup.
Yep.
It's the same type of thing when you're popping it into the oven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's that slow rise in heat.
I always was told that brown eggs are healthier than white eggs. So we grew up just buying brown eggs. And until now, we still buy brown eggs. Tell me this is true.
I'm sorry.
It's usually more expensive, right? Like,
It is because it's more expensive because the type of hens that lay them, they eat more. So that's why it's more expensive. So it actually is the color of the egg has nothing to do with its nutrition factor. It's based on the breed of the hen that lays those eggs.
So the hen's
So
eating
both-
better food. It's eating better, so the eggs are better quality.
No, it's just the type of the breed of hen.
so you're telling me I've been buying more expensive eggs for nothing?
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine that?
Not necessarily nothing. You're still buying eggs.
Just
They're
because-
still great.
Just because
Yeah.
a neighbor of a neighbor of a neighbor told us that brown
That they were
eggs
healthier.
is healthier for us, you know? You just
Maybe they
hear
were
it
thinking
from
of
the
brown rice. I don't know.
Wow, that's really something else because
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know many people. I think people don't necessarily like the concept of the eggs brown. I'm sorry, I want to ever have the other eggs. It may not be as healthy, whatever people believe. But that is fascinating because I knew that when I went to school, one of the boys' families were egg farmers, and they, he'd bring back brown eggs and regular eggs for people to say, oh yeah, because some of the staff liked it. And there were a lot of people that bought into that. Well, they're the healthier egg,
Yeah.
right, Nisreen?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I
Wow.
can't
And-
talk about that, when we were in school,
want my
but
money
as
back.
of today, the protein's the same, the fat is the same, the nutrients are the same. The difference is the
That's
hen
bizarre.
that lays the egg.
Nowadays,
type of
down in the
hen,
United
yeah.
States, the cost
Because
must
it's not
be
even
immense.
just us. My husband, when he grew up, he was always told that the same. So we're like, okay, we'll stick
I heard
to
the
that.
same.
But Niz,
Yeah.
do you like
I feel
them?
like
Do you
both of
taste?
us.
Is there a taste difference, ladies?
I don't
No.
think there's a taste difference. No.
No. And we could definitely do a taste test
me,
one day,
no.
but there is no taste
Yeah.
difference.
With eggs.
The only thing I would recommend when it comes to eggs, choose eggs that are based on quality and farming practices, not the color. Does not matter.
Okay.
So-
Butter should it always be stored in the fridge?
I just have a feeling so many are going to come at me with that brown and white egg thing.
I love it. I want someone to send in a message, especially a farmer, and say, "Well, that woman doesn't know what she's talking about on there."
Oh shoot, that would.
And they'll
that
say,
would
"Miss
definitely
Reed,
be
keep going to the
interesting.
store and buying those brown ones. Don't you pay any
Can't
attention."
believe it. Yeah.
I gotta feed
want-
my hens that lay the brown ones.
That's right.
Yeah,
I got to give them a lot of chocolate milk.
if only.
Exactly.
Next
So,
I
myth.
want to
okay.
know, should butter,
Butter.
be stored in the fridge? Because I always store it in the fridge.
Well, this is a yes and no. So this one here, butter can be safely stored at room temperature, right? So as long as you have it in an airtight container, because the higher the high fat content in the butter, it actually makes it less prone to spoilage.
Mhm.
So if you put it in the refrigerator, it's harder to spread. So if you leave a small amount of butter on your counter for daily use, either in a butter dish or container, that's fine. But store the rest of it in the fridge because it'll actually keep fresher longer.
Mm.
I like
So
the
you
idea.
can keep it on your counter.
Yeah. Especially if you're a regular butter user, it is the smart thing to do, right? Like
I also
It
hate.
is.
I never think about that way. What, Niz?
I hate melting refrigerated butter because it takes
I have a
longer.
hack
Because
for
you have
that.
to do it every like 25 seconds. Check on it, close the microwave again, 25 seconds, and then it's just not fully melted. So if it's at a room temperature, if you keep it at a room temperature, I feel like it would be so easy just to melt it all in one go.
But I have a hack for that for you.
Okay,
I've got a
okay.
solution. So if you're saying to me,
Please.
Mary, I don't trust you. I'm going to put my butter on the counter. I have the solution. If you want to keep it in the refrigerator, I'm saying you can put it on the counter, but if you choose not to, when you take it out, pop your toast in the toaster, pull it out. The toast is nice and warm. Get a fine, like a lemon zester, those microplanes,
Yes.
the fine ones. Get one of those and just grate the butter over top the toast. It will melt in seconds and spread.
Oh, yeah.
No microwave. no
On its
heat.
own. You don't have to
On
do
its own.
anything.
You just grate it over top because it's fine, and the heat of the toast, it will melt that
I love
and make it
that.
nice and spreadable.
All right. Hear that, Niz? That's really great. It just
I
sprinkles
like
down.
that. Yeah.
Okay. What
Give
about
it a try
cheese?
and let me know.
Let's talk
I will
cheese before we
try.
run you out the door and get all those brown egg farmers after you. Should
No.
cheese always be stored in plastic wrap?
Okay, so we all do this. The truth is,
Yes.
plastic wrap, it traps the moisture. So it makes the cheese spoil faster, longer, or develop either some unpleasant flavors to it. So what I want you to do, cheese needs to breathe, to maintain like that texture that you want and the flavor that you want. So store it in your cheese drawer if you have it, but wrap it in some wax paper, some parchment paper, and then store that into the cheese drawer.
Wow.
That's what I recommend.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Or
great,
somewhere in the
especially
fridge that doesn't have a high humidity.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because
Like
a pet
the-
peeve of mine is when I accidentally don't wrap it properly and it becomes
Oops,
dry.
dries out.
Dries out.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
those are
Yeah.
great.
And
So
that-
if you get
And
some
that has its
parchment
own
paper,
interesting taste.
yeah, or wax paper works really well.
Okay. Great. Thanks a lot, Mayor. Appreciate you
Thank you,
dispelling
Mary.
these myths and all this usual expert insights. Take care. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you both for having me.
Now you know what's fact and what's fiction, ladies and gentlemen. So next time you're cooking, remember to check all that out and just kind of keep those things in mind. Check out our podcast, too, from your platform of choice and give us a rating and review and subscribe to our YouTube page while you're at it. Nazreen, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow.
On our next program, TVO Kids Polly Can Do is an animated kids series that explores the playtime adventures of a 5-year-old girl with cerebral palsy. Polly brings her can-do attitude, which empowers her to have the best life and helps her friends lead their best lives as well. Jackie Palmer McPherson, a Holland Bloorview client and the voice of Polly, joins us on the program for a chat. We'll talk to you then. We're waving at you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.